Hello and welcome again to Tropical Plants at 53 degrees, and unbelievably it's another sunny day today. Yesterday was a horrendous day, and as far as money goes, not a good one for me, unfortunately. It was the conditions that I dread. It was very heavily overcast. It was below 5 degrees all day and all night, down to 1 overnight, and according to my calculations it cost me about £5.50. Obviously, if it cost me that over the course of a month, that's getting to be a considerable outlay. Fortunately, today should somewhat make up for that, and the more sunny days that we can get, the better it'll be for me. So, from some of my last videos, I've been taking into account what people have said, and somebody did mention it would be a good idea to focus on one particular type of plant, the care for that plant, which is what people tend to be searching for. So I'm going to focus on one plant. I was going to talk about feeding, but I am going to come back to feeding. The more I kind of looked into the feeding, I think I'm probably on safer ground talking about religion, abortion, or even the dreaded Brexit. It does seem to be a very controversial topic, and I do have some thoughts on the feeding side of things, and I think I've managed to make a couple of breakthroughs, at least in my understanding anyway. But I'll come back to that because I want to be sure that I know what I'm talking about before I go into it. But I'm sticking on safer ground today, and I'm going to talk about Streptocarpus, which are a wonderfully easy plant to deal with as opposed to many orchids. So with that said, let's have a look at what I've got, and we will then hopefully delve into the care and the culture for Streptocarpus and how you can have a nice display of Streptocarpus in your greenhouse or in your tropical grow room or wherever it is you want to grow them. So with that said, let's have a look at what I've got first of all. Okay, so you've seen these before. But I'm just going to go through some of the various ones that I've got. Now this one is a crystal variety. The crystal variety, and it's so packed I can hardly get the label out. It's absolutely desperate for a repot. Crystal ice. I've got quite a lot of these crystal ice. Probably not get that back in now. Get in there. So these are in like 8cm pots, and they really are due for a repot. I've got some others that I repotted last year. I've done much better. So first of all, these particular Streptocarpus that I've got about, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5 different varieties of Streptocarpus. There are many varieties of Streptocarpus. So they come from the montane forests. Now, from my research, I've been reading that saying something comes from a montane forest, there are actually varying types of montane forest. Even at the same latitude, conditions can be different. But it generally is talking about forests that are above the warmer areas, so we're talking like 1,500 metres to 2,500 metres. Like the higher areas or the higher ends of the montane forests is where the tree line ends, and then above that obviously you've got your alpine areas. So they are known as cooler growers. These in particular, I'm sure I saw a whitefly then, sorry about that. There's the little blighter. There was the little blighter, gone. That's the first whitefly I've seen in the greenhouse. Better keep my eye on that. So anyway, yeah, they come from the montane forest, but they come from tropical montane forests, which is its own unique kind of habitat. So the tropical montane forests, these in particular come from the African ones around the African area. I think Madagascar was mentioned as well at some point. So they grow in very mossy areas, cloudy areas, like cloud forest areas. There's a lot of moisture, a lot of humidity. They can grow in areas where there's running water. They like to be, well, I'll come to the water in a minute. Let's just have a look at what I've got, and we'll go through the various aspects of the cultivation. You will spot as you go round that some are looking healthier than others. I must point out first of all that these particular plants have been in flower since March, which is a long time for a plant to be in flower, and some of them are even though they've been fed, they're absolutely desperate for a rest. And I think what I will probably do come to like maybe late December, I will chop all the flowers off and try and force them into one. It's a bit like sending a tired toddler up to bed. They don't want to stop, they want to keep flowering, and it's time that they had a little break, I think. So I'll come to what I'm going to do with the same thing I did last year, and it worked brilliantly. So anyway, crystal ice, that's a nice one, dead easy to propagate, which I'll go into in a little while. Another one in a very small pot, needs to be repotted, pink Layla. This is one of my favourites, this purple one. Again, it's going over a little bit now. They get these like long things coming out in the middle as they get older, the flowers. I can't find the pot for the label for that one, what that one's called. I think I only had one pot of this, and there it is, tucked away. So I've done some little cuttings of it this last week. Titania, that one. Titania, that's easy to remember, isn't it? Another crystal ice. Coming back, I've undone it under here. A couple more pink Lalias. Another crystal ice. Another crystal ice. And this one, I think I've only got one of these. Gorgeous flower. Again, it's going over now. There's only one flower left. But as always, there's some more coming up at the bottom there. Polka dot purple, that one. Polka dot purple. I've also done some cuttings of that. Coming up here, where are we? Right, another pink Layla, another crystal ice. The crystal ice one is interesting because it is supposed to flower for 12 months of the year. But looking at these leaves, they're just, you know, they are way past the best now, and they're struggling a little bit. But they have looked absolutely brilliant. Just swing you over, more of the same. Again, all, you know, bought one plant. All you need is one variety of, you know, whatever you like, and you can just propagate that to your heart's content. It's so easy to do. Another one up there. This one's in a bigger pot. You see the leaves are a little bit better condition. There are still some yellowing ones on, but there are some darker green ones. And then another crystal ice up there. I don't think I've got any other different types. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think it's only 4. Oh no, there's one over there, 5. So I'll just head over there. Again, this one's nearly finished now. This one is Katie. Streptocarpus Katie. So I don't know, I think I've only got one of those. So yeah, right. What can we tell you about them? So we'll start with, well, we said where they came from. Temperatures. So similar to orchids, really. You know, you don't want to get them below 5 degrees. Obviously, they come from tropical climates, so they will die if they get frosted. They're quite happy in a house. They don't mind room temperatures. Even, you know, a conservatory they'll be quite happy with. As far as light levels go, it's the usual, what I was talking about the other day, it's the usual bright light but not direct sunlight. They will actually take shade, and this is why I've got some of them under the benches down here. When they're not looking quite as good, or when the flower, you know, they're in a period in between flowering, I'll stick them underneath there. But they don't tend to stay in a period of non-flowering for very long. So yeah, they don't mind shade. They like nice bright light. They do best in bright light, but as with most plants, if they're behind glass, stick them in direct sunlight without any shading on, and they will suffer. Once they've dried out, and I mean, like, you know, dried to the touch on the soil. That's really, they don't like that. They like to be quite moist for most of the time, but not sitting in water. So even though in the wilds they can grow like on the edges of running water, for some reason that just doesn't seem to be the same as sitting in a pot of stagnant water. They don't like that. So when you do water them, let the water run through and then try and move them to a drier area, which is what I try to do. They are quite tolerant. Even when you get to a point where they've dried out that much that they've started to wilt, they will still recover quite well. Even if you leave them. I mean, I went on holiday this year, and I was only away for about 4 days, and I'd asked a neighbour to keep his eye on things and water things. I'd asked him to water various plants, but I didn't tell him to water the streps, mainly because I thought it was going to be, quite dull weather while I was away, and I'd already watered them, given them a good soaking before I went away, and of course it was sunny while I was away, and I come back and they were all completely wilted. I thought I was going to lose them all, and they sprung back as soon as I watered them. So I expect they've been wilted for a couple of days, but they've still recovered. As far as what they're potted in, the media, they're just potted in my case, they're potted in jacks. I know you can get jacks in the US, just like a general multi-purpose potting compost. There is some feed in that, I believe, and once that feed has been used up, in perhaps 2 or 3 months, then it's usually a good thing to feed them again with just a general multi-purpose plant food. What I tend to use, I'll just grab hold of it, I use these things, these sticks. Now these are off Amazon. It's all in German, this one, so I don't even know what's in it. The whole thing's in German, but they're just not that fussy. I did used to use other ones that were in English, but they're a little bit more expensive. I thought, well, if they're cheap, I think what you get in here, 40 of these sticks. You just stick one of these sticks in and then you can forget about it, which is really what I wanted to do. So stick one of those in and you'll find that it's more than adequate food for them, and they're quite happy with that for a few months, and you'll be able to tell that they're going to need feeding again because they start to go yellow like these ones are over here on the leaves. So like we've talked about, feeding we've talked about. With the flower stalks, what you should do is just once the flowers are over, you end up with something like that, just like a spike. You just cut them off as close as you can to the bottom. If you don't cut them as close as you can, you end up with these very woody sticks, and they do start to take over the pot after a while because you get so many of them. They're so floriferous that it's just constant. You cut the flower spikes off and there's another one coming, and you cut it off and there's another one coming, and this is really why they need repotting. I mean, these that you can see, like this one I'm looking at now, you're looking at is in a bigger pot. The ones in the bigger pots have done much better than the ones in the smaller pots this year. The ones in the smaller pots, you can hardly move the labels, there's that many roots in them. So what I'm going to do at the end of this year, even though you're only supposed to do it in spring, but sometimes you do it when you've got time to do it, and I don't think they'll suffer too much. So I'm going to repot these smaller ones, get them into some bigger pots like this TITANIA one, about that size, and I'm sure they'll do even better next year. Problems that they suffer with: they do get dieback on the leaves. You can see on a number of mine. If the leaves get in the way, I just simply cut them across. You can see there where I've cut across. I know some people might say I should do that in a prettier pointy pattern. Sometimes I do, so I'm not really bothered as long as if the leaves get in the way, I just cut them off. There's always another one coming. They're very forgiving. So yeah, with the leaves, sometimes you get a bit of botrytis on the end of it, a bit of a fungal infection, again, just cut it off. It's no problem whatsoever. Some of the older leaves go a bit limp and start to rot a bit, again, just pull it off. You know, they're quite happy. If you decide you want to give it a good going over, a good titivating up, as my mother would have said, just simply cut all the flowers off, cut all the stalks off, and go around the plant and just pull all the yellowing leaves off, and you'll find that the newer greener ones are in the middle. So like you can see, these here, these newer ones are the ones you want to keep. So you just go around the outside, just pull all these lower older yellowing leaves off, like that one, and even if you're left with only, you know, 2 or 3 bright, you know, nice deep green leaves in the middle, it will start to rejuvenate and will come back and then reward you with some more flowers. Just point to another one for a little bit, this pink Layla one. Problems, well, a couple of problems I've had with them this year. One of the main ones has been green fly. Now in summer I do open up. I read on the I think it was the St. Augustine Orchid Society, which does have a lot of good information on it. got that from Rick. They like all plants like ventilation and like fresh air more than they like pretty much anything else. So I fling open my doors and I have the vents open full during the summer, but of course that lets the bugs in. Perhaps another reason for having some carnivorous plants in your greenhouse. But they are a martyr to green fly, aphids. So yes, aphids will absolutely infest them, but curiously not on the leaves. They don't touch the leaves, they go straight for the flowers and for the flower stalks, and obviously that's going to knock any plant back. So what I tend to use, I've got a couple of things. I've got that one, Bravado, but I've found it's alright, it works well, but it's not a systemic one. So let's just grab this other one. I think Roger's had a go at this one as well, this Bug Clear Ultra. This one's really good. I think I might have got these two the wrong way around, I'm just trying to think now. Yeah, this is the right one. As you can see at the top there, see number 2, systemically. I think Roger pointed out in one of his videos, you can actually buy, advice which I followed actually, bear with me, you can buy it in this form, the concentrated form, which is actually cheaper per milliliter than the sprays, which is usually the case, isn't it? And Roger did a good video on this. The Vine Weevil Killer one, I think what they do is they repackage these things, don't they, and put a different like a specific pest on, but the stuff is the same. The ingredients that go into it's exactly the same. This particular Vine Weevil one was fairly cheap, and you actually get, I think you get more like volume in the bottle itself. So I bought that to mix my own stuff up. But yeah, that works brilliantly. That just spray that once, and in fact I sprayed it a few months ago now. I went through them all, I think August, it would have been late August, and they all just bounced back fantastically well. So that's one pest, but it's easily solvable. The other pest, not quite so easily solvable. Vine Weevil. Vine Weevil seem to really enjoy a good munch on Streptocarpus roots, and you only know there's a problem when all the leaves go extremely limp and start to just flop down. Further inspection, when you unpot it, then you find all the little C-shaped, creamy coloured grubs of Vine Weevil inside the pots, and pretty much no roots. Now, Streptocarpus are so forgiving and so easy to root that you could, if you could rid yourself of the Vine Weevil, change the compost, and stick them back in a pot and obviously, you know, deflower them, give them a chance, then they would root quite easily again and they soon fill the pot. But I decided, I had about 3 that flopped, and I decided that, well, I don't want to take the chance, you know, that I'm going to hatch out some vine weevil beetles and have them ravage the greenhouse. So I threw those pots out, and then what I did was I got this that stuff that I was just talking about, and I mixed it according to the instructions, and I watered everything, like literally everything in the greenhouse, just to make sure that the vine weevil, you know, not the things in bark, because I don't think vine weevil are going to lay eggs in bark. I think they're going to go for more of a soil type of compost. And I've not had any trouble since. So yeah, that's pests. What other problems, what other things do we have I not discussed? Propagation. Yeah, propagation. Right, so doddle, absolute doddle propagation. I know they've done it on Gardener's World a few times. So basically what you do, you go to your plant, and it's very tempting, I've done this myself in the past, to go for one of the bigger, older leaves at the bottom. And to, you know, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone and tidying it up a bit as well. But best advice is to go for one of the newer leaves in the centre of the plant. Just simply pull it out so you've got yourself a leaf, and then you cut it into sections, and make sure that you know which side is down and which side is up, because those little, I don't know, about 5 centimetres worth of leaf, each one of those can go directly into compost, as I have done over here. So you can see there, you just plant the leaves the right way round into the compost like that, stick them in something that's going to keep some humidity in. These were planted 26th of October, as you can see, and they should take 5 to 12 weeks apparently. I have done it before, like I say, a lot of these are propagated ones from the varieties that I bought. So that's one way of propagating them. You're only really supposed to do it in spring, but I figured, well, it's a tropical greenhouse, do they really know whether it's spring, summer, autumn, winter? It's worth a try, isn't it? And like I say, very often we do these things because that's when we've got time to do it, and in my case as a gardener, winter is my quiet time to work, so that's when I'm going to do it. It can, you know, the worst can happen is they don't take, they rot, and I'll simply have another go. So that's propagation. There is another way of propagating them. They will divide as well, so that's another easy way to do it. So you can't really lose. I have found that some varieties propagate a lot easier than others. I can't remember which, but looking at the plants that I've got at the moment, I seem to have an awful lot of crystal ice, and I will have only bought one of those, so I'm guessing that's one that does propagate really easily. And I've only got one of this polka dot purple one, which tells me that that doesn't propagate very easily, but I've had a go at that one. Again, I've only got one of these, so that probably doesn't propagate that easily. So that one and that one are the ones I'm trying to propagate at the moment. So it may be that when I did them last, I didn't really realise that I needed or didn't know at that point that I needed the greener, younger leaves from inside the centre of the plant. So that's Streptocarpus, spotlight on Streptocarpus. What else? Watering. You can water them from the bottom, you can water them from the top. Like I say, they like to stay fairly moist, but they don't like to sit in water. So summer they're going to need watering quite a lot, because, you know, get the sun anywhere where they're going to dry out very quickly. You'll soon know if you're not watering enough, because the leaves will start to wilt, but they do bounce back, so it's nothing to worry about. Have I forgotten anything? I'm sure somebody will tell me if I have. I can't think of anything else. So that's Spotlight on Streptocarpus for today. I would definitely encourage people who haven't had a go to give it a go. They're a great one to take into the house, even if you just want to, you know, brighten things up for a while, or you want something in flower through winter, then these are a good choice. They are a very popular house plant here in the UK, and they have been for many, many years. And there are some brilliant growers, some brilliant nurseries with various varieties. They come in pretty much every colour, every, you know, shape and size you could possibly imagine. And what I use them for when I'm kind of creating a display here in the greenhouse, if I've not got any orchids in flower, or there's a little gap that I like to put a flower in, then the Streptocarpus fill that really nicely. It's kind of like the understory at the front of all the benches, because they don't grow that tall. It's really nice just to, you know, just to fill those gaps with something that's so floriferous. I've just noticed another one of the Katie ones down here. I didn't realise I had two of those. So yep, so that's it on Streptocarpus. If anyone's got any questions, or I've missed something off, or there's something that I've not got right, because I'm certainly not the font of all knowledge on these things, and some of this information I've even gleaned from Mr. Google this morning. So, you know, oh, I just thought of something else. Yeah, in terms of what happens over the seasons, my experience over this last 12 months is they didn't flower from like January to about early March time. They were very, very green because I'd fed them. They were looking really, really healthy, and not a one was in flower. And I thought, oh, I've done something wrong here. They're all just, you know, perhaps I've overfed, and they're very green and they don't look like any sign of flower. And then all of a sudden, pretty much to the day, they all produce flower spikes all at once, and they've been in flower ever since. There was a little hiatus towards the end of August when they all wilted because I was away for a bit, but it didn't last, you know, it didn't last more than a few days, literally. And I cleaned them all up, sprayed them all with green fly spray, watered them all with the vine weevil killer, and they've been in flower ever since. And what we're into now, we're like nearly into mid-November, and they're still going strong. One or two of them are dropping the flowers, but you can see new flower spikes coming on them. So yeah, that's Streptocarpus, definitely well worth having in your collection. And if anybody has any other things that they think I should go over, I think they would like to kind of get all in one, you know, one video, please let me know. It's been wonderful reading people's comments. You know, I'm quite touched so many people are interested, you know, even mildly interested in anything I've got to say. But I'm not trying to come across as, you know, the expert in this, because I'm certainly not. I'm learning as I'm going along. Even throughout my primary teaching career, when I was at school, when I was a teacher, there's nothing that makes you learn something more than when you've got to tell somebody. And I found that true to be the case here too. So it certainly made me swat up on it, and it'll improve my growing skills, and maybe somebody else's. Well, all for the better. So yeah, like, subscribe, do what you want to do, and hopefully I shall see you on the next one. Bye.